Hi, I'm Sheila Layton. Welcome to the Beyond Coincidence Show, where every moment holds a miracle and we talk about seeing the hand of God in our lives. Call it a God wink or a tender mercy or whatever you want. Everyone on this show has seen the hand of God or their higher power in their lives in a very real and personal way. Hey everybody, welcome to the Beyond Coincidence Show. I have another amazing guest with me today. Her name is Emilee, and she is just one of the sweetest people. I just have met her for the first time a few minutes ago while we were chatting, but I have been following her on Instagram for a while, and she has a beautiful story of faith, and she's just a positive, sweet lady. So I'll just read a little bit about her, tell you a little bit about her, and then we'll get started. So Emilee is a 44-year-old woman living with cystic fibrosis. She's been married to her best friend for 22 years, and they have been blessed with 2 children that came through many miracles. Emilee has a deep love of our Savior, who has helped her through her journey of living with this chronic illness. With each miracle she receives, she tries to share more about the source by which they come. She wants to teach others of Christ so they can see the miracles more fully that surround them and find more peace and joy in this life. So, welcome, Emilee.
Thank you.
Just tell me a little bit about yourself just today, Emilee Pehrson today.
Okay, we live in a rental. We sold our house about a year ago. We actually live across the street from where we had lived for 17 years.
Oh,
So that was a really big change for us, but we live in the basement of our friend's house, and my daughter is 20. She's at college. My son is 13 in 8th grade, and then my husband and I. So there's just the 3 of us in this little rental with our dog and a cat. And it's just life is a little hectic, but good. And yeah, I love cooking. I love studying scriptures. I love being with friends and, just trying to find ways to enjoy life more.
so what keeps you busy day to day? Obviously, a
Oh,
son in 8th grade is busy time. He's a busy boy, I'm
he
sure.
keeps me very busy, very, very busy, trying to keep him on track with school and all the things. So, yeah, definitely that. My health keeps me very busy. I have a lot of medicine I have to do throughout the day, and just trying to take care of myself is a full-time job, really. So, yeah, being a wife and a mom and homemaker and all those things.
Oh, good. And you do it with a lot of grace, that's for sure.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Tickle in my throat. Okay, so Emilee, tell me about what life was like growing up. Siblings, family, parents, religion. Let's go back to little Emilee.
All the things.
Yeah.
Okay, so I grew up in Fairview, Utah, which is actually where I'm at still today. That's another story. I didn't think I'd ever be here again, but been here for a while. So, my parents, I had 2 older brothers. So, one that is 2 years older than me has cystic fibrosis also. And then, yeah, my other brother is 2 years older than him. And it was the 3 of us and our parents. And when I was 5, our parents got divorced. And my oldest brother went and lived with my dad, and my brother just older than me and myself lived with my mom. And so that was, really challenging time in life. And then both parents remarried. They all live in Fairview. And I have lots of siblings because of it, which I'm really grateful for each one of them. I have a great relationship with each of them, which is really beautiful. So I actually have 6 sisters and 4 brothers.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, most of them live in Utah. I have a sister in California and 2 sisters in Tennessee.
So they're like a stepsisters then.
I have half. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
Coming
yes,
from a
both parents had kids.
Sisters, that's great.
Yes, yeah, it really is.
Oh,
So,
that's awesome. So
yeah.
how old were you when your parents divorced?
5.
You were 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
So what did religion look like sort of before, during, and after all that?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, baptized at 8, and always been fully active. Both parents are still active and members, and all 4 parents, with the step parents and all that. So yeah, I've always had a great love of God and of this church, and just found a lot of peace in it. And so that's what's kind of helped me to just keep that positive attitude and have hope and move forward in life.
So after your parents divorced, did you spend time kind of one of those kids sort of going back and forth between parents?
Yeah, a little bit. My dad lived down the road. It was just a really interesting time. I mostly was with my mom. I didn't do the like every other weekend thing, but we still saw each other a lot and did, holidays and things like that.
So you said you always remained active. That divorce didn't cause you to question your faith?
Yeah, I mean, at 5, I just don't think it was that.
Little.
I mean, there were definitely challenges because of it, but, faith wasn't one of those. And especially where both were still, believed and in the church, then that was just part of life. We just did that,
Yeah, so you went to church all growing up with your parents and even your stepdad, I'm assuming then.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
So how would you say, as you got older, kind of your later teen years, your college years, how did you begin to develop that relationship with your Father in heaven and the Savior?
Yeah, so with my illness, actually, I think I just had a different dependence on him than maybe somebody else would growing up. I had a lot of illness, a lot of very sick days. In 4th grade, I missed like a whole month of school.
So Emilee, explain a little bit about cystic fibrosis for people that don't know maybe what that is or how severe that it can be.
Yeah, sure. So when I was born, the life expectancy was around 12 to 13. My parents were told, that my brother and I would probably not see our teenage years, which I can't imagine being told that, being a mom, And I don't remember ever specifically someone telling me that, but I just sort of always kind of knew that there was this, like, you don't live forever with CF,
Right.
There were things that could cause you to lose your life early. And so that's a lot to grasp or, to try to wrap your head around. But I really tried not to focus on that. What it is it's a lung disease. It's a recessive genetic disease. So both parents are carriers of the gene, but don't necessarily know it. So
Sure,
my parents had no idea.
Right? Back then, they didn't even do genetic testing, did they?
No. I mean, they didn't know. They didn't even know what gene the CF mutation was on until, yes, yeah. So they know that now, but so when my brother was diagnosed, it was all brand new to my parents. And, it affects your lungs, it affects your digestion, your pancreas, but in essence, it affects every aspect of your body. But my brother and I were fortunately pretty healthy growing up. We didn't know anyone else with CF, so we just thought, oh, this is what CF looks like, and I didn't realize, the first time I went in the hospital, I was 15, super scary. I really thought, like, this is the beginning of the end, and again, I had to depend a lot on faith and God and, whatever will be, will be. And I remember going into the hospital and starting these antibiotics. They call it like 2 weeks of antibiotics to help your exacerbation of your lungs, because you have a lot of mucus and bacteria that forms from that. So anyways, I remember them telling me, like, oh, lots of people with CF come in when they're children, like young children. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm doing pretty good then. I had no other standard besides my brother, and he had never been in the hospital. And so it was just all really new territory for me, and really had to learn how to be in tune with my body so I would know when I wasn't doing great and how to be more aware to let my doctors know, like, look, I think there are some things going on. And anyway, but it's just, since that hospital stay, there has been countless more, and my health, it's a progressive disease, so you definitely just decline as you get older. And, you can say I'm on oxygen. I started wearing oxygen Well, after my daughter was born, I had a lot of complications with her birth, and was on oxygen for a long time, and then was able to get off of it. But the past like 7 years, I've been on it full time again. So.
Yeah. So sort of through that whole journey, you basically had to rely on the Lord then, did you, to sort of bring you
Absolutely.
peace, or what did
Yes.
that look like?
Yeah, so I feel like I've always just sort of had this sense of where I came from and that there was a purpose and that God would just let me know what that is. I've always believed in God. I've never even questioned if he was real or not. And I do feel like that was a gift I was born
Oh,
with.
oh, I think so. That
You know,
gift to believe, right?
yes, yes, to have a believing heart.
Right, because
And
you
I,
have this trial of health, but then the Lord sort of compensated with that gift to believe that you knew
yeah,
who you were and that he was there. That's
yes,
beautiful.
yeah. I remember specifically, I think I was around 8 years old and I was very sick and I wasn't sleeping. I was having a really hard time sleeping. And my stepdad and my uncle gave me a blessing. And it was one of the first times I remember like a blessing being given to me. I'm sure there were countless others before
So
that,
just
but
explain to people that don't know what that is.
yes, thank you. So we believe that the men in our church hold the priesthood and are able to, through the power of God, give a blessing, sort of like a prayer, but believe that it truly is, they are the mouth of God and the hands of God blessing this person. And so they gave me a blessing, and I don't remember what was said, but I remember going and sitting on my aunt's lap and immediately just falling asleep. And that was one of the big issues, was that I hadn't been able to sleep. And so that was just one of those moments where it's like, oh, this is real. Like he's blessing me, and there's just been countless other times where I've just seen his hand in my life and in the life of those around me and witnessed those miracles and those testaments of what he can do and who he is.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Okay, so I know that there is a specific experience that you would like to share where you have seen the hand of God in the details of your personal life. Do you want to just share that? Like, get into that and
Yeah.
give details and some background so that people can understand why it was a miracle for you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll go to maybe one of the more recent ones because there really are so many to choose from.
I
But
bet.
5 years ago, well, 6 years ago, I ended up getting influenza A, which was very serious. And I honestly, there was the first night where in the hospital, I didn't know if I was going to survive. And I was actually really scared. And I remember praying and just feeling this peace in the room, just feeling like I was being watched over. And I woke up the next day and I was like, okay, well, we made it through that day. Let's just keep going, But it took my health took a real big hit from that illness. And in 2019, so 5 years ago, my doctors really recommended that I go get evaluated for a lung transplant.
Oh, wow.
Super scary, very overwhelming. I have friends that have had a lung transplant, and so I was able to talk with them and, ask my questions. But you think you're prepared because you think, oh, I know, I've talked to people, and then you get into the situation and you do the whole scan of testing and all of the things to prepare you for it.
And then it becomes real, right?
It's so much. And it was so hard. It was super physically, emotionally, spiritually draining. And my husband just had a lot of really hard decisions to make. They basically told me, like, we don't know if you'll survive another bad virus. Like, you are very fragile right now. And there's this window. And so you have to be able to so they do all the testing and then they decide if you're actually physically capable of having a lung transplant or if you're too sick. So you don't want to do it when you're too healthy, but you don't want to do it when you're too sick. So there's just this window, and they're like, you're in the window, and now is the time. Like, you need to do this. And it was a week long of all these tests and everything. And the last day, I've been praying. It was just such a struggle because I knew I was very sick, and I knew that I wanted to be prepared if I needed a lung transplant, but I wasn't prepared to just get listed that day. Within hours, someone has gotten the call for lungs.
And you
Some
weren't
people
quite ready,
it's two,
right?
yeah, some people it's 2 years of waiting, and other people it was within hours. And I'm like, well, I'm not ready for hours, but 2 years,
Right.
sure.
If you sign that paper, it could be within hours or 2 years, like you say. So
Yeah.
you kind of weren't there yet.
Yeah, and there was still testing that had to be done. I still had about a month of different things that I needed to do before they would actually say, okay, you are approved to be on the list. But that last day of this week-long stay, my doctor from Utah, I was in California going to the Stanford hospital. I just felt like that was the best choice. But my doctor from Utah called me, and he just said, look, I have news. I don't want to tell you what to do. I'm not going to say, this is the right way or that way, but I want you to be fully informed, and there's a new drug, which I knew there was a new medication coming out. He said that was going to really benefit CF and our lungs. And he said, we can get you on it in the next couple of months. Wow. So you have a really big decision to make. And we didn't know how it would benefit me or if it would benefit me at all, because it hadn't been tested on people with as low a lung function as I have. I'm considered severe cystic fibrosis, and anything above 40% is moderate to, anyway, I was in the severe, so below 40% of lung function, and they just don't test on that low percentage because they have no idea how they'll respond, and they don't want to do harm, and so I really weighed the pros and cons, and at any moment something could happen and I'm back in the hospital and not doing well. And so it was just a true test of faith where I solely had to rely on God. I said to my husband, I want you to tell me what to do. And he said, I can't. Like that can't, if something goes wrong, I can't live with that. This has to be your decision. And I was like, okay. But then I remembered I'm not alone in this. He's there and he's ready and willing to tell me what's best for me and lead me down the right path. And if I start going down the wrong path, I knew he wouldn't let me go down that path for long. And so after a lot of prayer and consideration, I truly felt that I should wait and I should start the new medication.
So let me interrupt you for 1 second.
Yeah.
So you said you felt that you should wait for the medication. How did that answer come? Part of the reason for this podcast that I felt really strongly about was I wanted people to understand how answers from God come, right? Because they come very differently for everyone.
For everybody.
And so what did that look like for you? Because you had put a lot of effort into this decision because this was literally a life decision.
Life or death. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're not kidding, for sure.
Right. I know. I'm like, it sounds so dramatic, but it really was.
It really was, especially when you were in that position where you needed a lung transplant, right? And you're like, okay, lung transplant or medication, because lung transplant can still be on the table in the future, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you prayed for a long time. So how did that decision come? Did it come bam at one time, or did you just kind of tell me how that worked?
No. So it was a process of time, actually. I mean, it was a lot of prayer and studying and just trying to get answers. And it's so hard when you're also having this fear, because I feel like sometimes that drowns out the faith. And you're like, logically, all of this makes sense, but I know that God isn't always logical. And, his answers don't always make sense. I knew what I felt I wanted to do, and I really wanted to wait, but trying to decipher, is that me? Is that God? How do I know? And then I remembered I saw a story by one of the apostles in our church, one of the leaders, and he had shared that story of being on two paths and praying to know which path to go down. And they started down the path, and they found that there was a dead end. And his son said to him, well, why do you think we felt like this was the way to go. And he said, well, all I can figure is that if we went down the other path, the whole time we would be wondering, is this the right one?
Right.
And I was like, okay, so he's not going to lead me down the wrong, and if he does, then he'll put me on the right path eventually. But, and I really felt like, okay, I've waited 40 years for this miracle to come. I can wait a couple more months. Right. But I remember as I was reading scripture, and in our church, we have the Book of Mormon as another testament of Jesus Christ. And as I was reading that, I was reading in about the brother of Jared, and how he, God said, how do you want me to get you a light in these boats across the ocean? And I thought, if he can go to God and tell him, this is how I want you to do it, then maybe I can do that. Maybe I can say, yes, you know what, this is what I want. Please let me know if it's okay. If
right,
this is
you had done all the work, right? You had
done
all the praying, and you're like, okay, this is decision I think is correct. And God's not going to lead you down a garden path that's wrong.
Right. For too long. Sometimes he might, just so you know.
Right.
And actually, after I was on the medication for 12 days, I broke out in the most severe rash anyone has ever seen. My doctor was like, oh my goodness, we have to get you off that medication because it could kill you. Like, it could start affecting your breathing, and and I'm like, okay, is that his way of telling me that was the wrong path? But my doctor, and it was a very heavy night when he said, you have to stop this medication. That is saving your life. Because when I started it, within 11 days, I could tell a major difference. I had more energy.
In your breathing?
Yes, I had more energy. I could breathe deeper. I was just much more active. My children were like, why are you not sitting on the couch? Like, what's happening? I'm cooking dinner again, where I literally had been living on the couch for years, for like the past couple years. And it was so heavy to be like, this thing that is helping me so much is also hurting me. Right. And so I had to let go of it for a moment. And then my doctor said, we are going to work as hard as we can to get you back on it and figure out a solution of how we can do this. And
so did you then have to actually go off of it for a bit?
Yes,
then?
Yes. So this is right before Thanksgiving. I remember going to Thanksgiving dinner at my dad's house. And the next day I woke up, and it was almost as if my body had just it had started to clear of all the mucus and the things that are affecting it. And it just came back full bore, and I could barely breathe. I was needing 4 liters of oxygen just to walk across the room.
So how long had you been off? Is it called Trikafta?
Trikafta, yes. Trikafta. So I think at that point I'd been off maybe a week.
Oh, so not long.
Not long at all. Yeah.
And had all the rash gone away and stuff?
No, I still was full rash. It wasn't as itchy. It wasn't burning as much, but it was still very itchy, actually. And so, but I end up in the ER because I can't breathe at all. We know my lungs are I think I was just completely full of inflammation. And so I I get admitted into the hospital for what is most likely going to be a 2-week stay. It ends up being a 3-week stay.
Oh, wow.
Because they couldn't even start medication because when they would start it, I would just break out in hives again.
So were you praying this whole time? Like, what are you doing?
Oh,
you're like,
the whole time I'm like, what's happening? What am I supposed to do? Please just give me peace to know that whatever comes is going to be okay. And I truly did feel like I was going to get back on the medication. That's what I felt. And in January, the beginning of January, so this was Thanksgiving, the beginning of January, I was able to get back on it, and I had to do a lot of steroids. I gained 35 pounds.
Oh, wow.
It was just a lot, and steroids are that's
so
a
you
whole
did steroids
other
at
animal.
The same time as the medication, or before you started it?
Yeah, before I started it, and then during, but they also did, it's called a desensitization of the medication. So they just give you a little tiny bit at a time every hour and just increase the dose.
So they were
as
just
you do it.
really, really wanting you to do this, right?
Yes, yes, because they had seen how effective it had been in 11 days,
Right.
and so by May, I was off all steroids and my lung function had gone up. My energy had increased. I have a lot less hospital stays a year. So I was up to 4, 5, 6 hospital stays a year. That's 2 weeks at a time.
Wow.
And
We're now into like May of 2020, which
2020.
is a gong
Yes.
show.
Yes. So that was the thing that was also really just one of those testimony builders of miracles, is that if I had chosen to be listed, I would have been on flights back and forth, going in the hospital, doing different things that way in California. And with COVID going on,
With
that
no,
would have been super scary for me
yes, yeah,
to
because
be going out
you
like
could
that.
die,
Yes,
and no one could come with you.
right. Yeah. So it was just tender mercies all around when I was like, oh, wow, he just really helped save me from having to be in that mess of things, and where I could just stay home and not have to be traveling anywhere. I mean, I didn't leave my house hardly for a year, so
Yeah, I
it
bet.
was just a lot. It was a lot. But yeah, just seeing how much this medication has changed my life. It's not perfect. We still need a cure. Maybe one day it'll come. I don't know. But God is just helping me to feel. I mean, I truly depend on Him every day for strength to just lift my burdens so that I can do the life that I want to live, and I tried really hard to submit to Him and just say, okay, what do you want me to do today? What
And
is
what
it
does
that
that
I
look
can do
like?
to
What does
help
that come
you?
to you like when you say your prayers like, Heavenly Father, what do you want me to do today? I'm so grateful for the blessings you've given me. What does
Yeah.
that look like for you? Like what happens in a day? Like, or just say
You
something
know,
that has happened that you have noticed.
not every day I even notice anything, but sometimes when the day's over, I'm like, oh, I think that was what the thing was that I needed to do today.
And what would that
But,
be?
well, sometimes it'll be send a text message to this person, call this person. Walking down the street, I have $20 in my hand, or whatever. Give it to them. Just these little thoughts that pop in, and the more that I've tried to do that and really just put my focus on Him, the more I see His hand showing up and saying, okay, well, I want you to do this now. With building our house, we had no idea what to do. We weren't sure we were even supposed to stay in Fairview, and then these answers come. It's like, oh, and for me, the answers, it's a thought in my head, which is difficult because then I'm like, well, is that me? Is that Him? What is that? But just as I'm now 44 years experience with God on earth, and just gaining a real testimony of how He works through me and what that looks like, and being able to decipher better how to know what's what. And then remember that He's not going to lead me down the wrong way. And if I start going the wrong way, He's going to help me to know where to go.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, that, like with the transplant of the medication, transplant your medication, like that's a huge decision.
Yeah.
And that experience, the miracle of you making that really hard decision and it being such a miraculous change in your health.
Yeah.
That has to have built your testimony that, okay, I know He wants me to have joy. He wants me to have the best life I possibly can with my current situation. And He's going to help me get that.
Yeah. And knowing, I mean, I've had a lot of friends pass away that then I question, why am I still here? Why am I blessed to still live this beautiful life? And
how do you work through that?
I just truly feel that each of us have this mission on earth, and when our time is done, then our time is done. But He's in charge of that, and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, you just do the best you can, right?
Yeah, I take care of my health. I do all the things that I need to do to stay healthy, and He makes up the rest. And if it means that I go earlier than what I think I should, then I go earlier. I've already lived so far beyond what I thought I would that every day is just a bonus.
Because you didn't
You
think
know,
you'd be 40 for sure, right?
oh, absolutely not. No. And it's such a weird way to live, but I'm like, I always knew God was in charge. And so I was like, well, as long as he wants me here, I'm here. But then when I had my daughter and had my first real glimpse of death, I mean, I was right on the brink. It was a pretty scary time. Then to see his hand in helping me to get my strength back and get back to a life that was worth living, just knowing what he's capable of, seeing all these different times in my life where he truly was my strength and the reason that I'm able to even do anything is because of him. Then I know I hold that and I say, okay, well, you got this, so just lead me, help me know what's best.
And that's where that relying on him, right? Like that. And
Yeah.
that again is a step-by-step process of learning to, okay, I know he loves me and I know he's there, but
Yeah.
ooh, this is really hard. Can I do this? Can I just take that step into the dark
Yeah.
before I see the answer, right? Like
Yes.
that's
Yes.
huge faith. And you did that and the Lord comes through,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
He
Like,
does.
so how's that been for your husband? Like that has to be terrifying for him quite
Yeah.
often. Like he
Yes.
must have
And
great
for my
faith.
kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah, for sure. But your
yeah,
husband
it's
must have
just,
good faith.
yeah, it's so interesting. He actually did not grow up active in our church. He was baptized at 8 years old, but he really didn't know much about the gospel or anything. But he moved down here when he was 17, 16. And we went on a date within a few months of him living here and just became really fast friends and really enjoyed being together. We started dating pretty seriously. And just the
So are you
example of
like high
his
school
friends.
sweethearts?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
we
that's
are.
awesome.
Yeah. But he wasn't going to serve a mission. He didn't feel a call to do that. But as he just saw his friends and their example in his life, he was like, why would they do that? Why would they go and serve God? So in our church, at the time it was 19, boys would serve a mission. They would get called to wherever in the world and they served for 2 years. And he just couldn't see the point of that. He didn't have a testimony of that. But as he saw friends leave and other friends come home, he thought, why are they doing that? And that's when he really just took it to God and was like, okay, if this is something you want me to do, you're going to have to let me know that that's what you want me to do. And he said it was it was a long process where it was a week of just praying, for quite a while every night and not receiving anything. But instead of just giving up, which I love because I think as a teenager, it would be so easy to be like, well, he didn't answer that prayer. I'm good. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But he just kept saying, okay, let me feel something. I know you're there. I want to feel something. And he was actually in an interview with one of our leaders of our church, and he started talking about his mission, and immediately my husband, we actually were broken up at the time, but my husband was, anyway, he's just getting really happy and just like so almost giddy, like, and he's like, what is that? I mean, why am I feeling this way? And he was telling his friends about it, and they're like, that's the Spirit. That's how the Spirit works.
Yeah.
And so that night after he had talked to his friends, he went home and he prayed and he said, is that really the Spirit? And immediately he said it was like a bucket of water just poured over him. And he knew, and he was like, I can't deny that. And I know I'm supposed to go on a mission. And so he served a 2-year mission in Ohio. We got back together shortly after that experience, and I waited for him while he was on a mission. It was really challenging.
Yes, it was a long time.
Yeah, but that's where he gained his testimony and his faith. And, I always, as we were dating, I was like, okay, let me just give you an out because this is hard. And
Right.
death is usually the end. Like, I mean,
And you
of this
didn't know. I mean,
disease.
this was 25 years ago. You didn't
Yeah,
know what was
right.
coming.
Yeah, I didn't know if I could have children. Like, I really had no clue. We were both just sort of like, okay, we don't know what's coming, but he just said, I would rather live a life with you than one without, regardless of the circumstances.
Oh,
And
that's sweet.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it really was. And he just has really put his faith in God to know if, like, whatever comes, comes. Like, we know we've had lots of challenges and lots of really hard things, but overall, we felt joy and peace and love and have just been so blessed,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and the mission probably, just kind of upped his testimony game, right? Like
absolutely.
gave him
Yes.
that little bit of extra faith to be like, okay,
Yeah.
Emilee, this is going to be really hard for us, but I know that God has our back, whatever the outcome is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the two of you have been able to work through that together, which is, if one had great faith and one did not so much, it might have been much harder. But,
Absolutely.
the Lord
Yeah.
knew that he needed to be on a mission to give him that
To
strength.
gain that. Yes. Yeah.
So
And
that's
it's been such a good thing for our kids to know, and just to see that even through the hard things, Heavenly Father is still there. He's very aware. Our Savior Jesus Christ has literally gone through all of these things. He's not going to leave us alone. And it's just powerful to know that he's got us. Whatever it is that we're going through, it's not on our own.
Yeah. And that great faith doesn't exempt us from these hard things. It just helps get us through, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So my final question for you then, Emilee, is why do you think it's important to recognize the hand of God in your life?
Yeah, well, I just think that anytime someone gives you a gift, or anytime you see, someone does something good for you, if you don't acknowledge that, why would they do it again?
Right.
And not saying that God isn't willing to do it again, because he's God and he's very merciful and loving, but I do feel the more we turn to him and we recognize his hand and we're able to see these miracles all around us, he's like, well, guess what else I have for you? Look what else I have in store, and it's just such a beautiful way to live.
Yeah.
I have a friend, Julie Taylor, she says it's more fun to believe. And I think that's so true, because I can't imagine living a life without believing in this, and especially with all my experiences. I do know that he's there. I do know that he wants to have a relationship with his children, and that he truly is willing and ready to bless us as we turn to him and ask for that comfort and guidance and peace that only he can bring. Because this world is so chaotic, and it's so hard to find peace in this world. So knowing that you have this merciful, loving being who is truly wanting your best for you is just, I can't imagine not giving him all the glory for that.
Oh, thank you, Emilee. That's beautiful. Okay, so unless you have anything else that you want to add, I just truly appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And
no, it's just been such a great opportunity. Thank you for asking me. And
nice.
I love that you're doing this podcast. I think it's very beautiful.
Well, thank you. It's been a really fun experience so far. So I just hope I can keep going and letting people know about Jesus. And I just want to say to people out there, if you enjoy these podcasts, please share them with your friends, because we're trying to just share light and love and God and all the good things. So
I love that.
All right.
That. We need more light in this world.
We do. So thank you so much, Emilee.
Yes, thank you, Sheila.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you have an experience where you have seen the hand of God or your higher power in your life, I want to hear about it. Please send an email to Sheila@beyondcoincidence.com. Have a great day.